Esther. I'm hoping to see about 3 people watching tonight because everybody else is outside enjoying the weather. If you started watching, that does not mean you have permission to turn it off and go outside. But we are looking forward to talking about the book of Esther. We're in chapter 4. We're halfway through it. We're going to do a little review, finish it up, and let you go tonight, hopefully a little bit early. It's kind of like when you were in school, and you got through your work and the teacher said, all right, we're going to let you go early. That's where we are tonight. So we're waiting for Timothy to give us the signal that everything is on, everything is ready to go, and then we're going to get right started. So, good evening once again, Lakeview friends and family, Community Church friends and family. Hey, we are live tonight, ready to go with the book of Esther. You're going to want to turn to chapter 4. We're going to be halfway through it. We're going to pick up where we left off last week. I'm going to do a little bit of review, and then we're going to get to the part that most people know, which is for such a time as this. And then we're going to finish up chapter 4 so that we can get into chapter 5 next week. Excited that we get to be on the verge of reopening around in the area. Some places are, some places aren't. People are out enjoying the weather. It's Memorial Day weekend coming up, and we're excited to be able to get outside and just to enjoy friends and family, celebrate memorial moments. The book of Esther, is one of those. We're going to talk about that tonight. So, without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my partner in crime on nights. That is Stephen, his wife Melinda, and their family as they team up with us in ministry. So enjoy this song.
In Christ alone, my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fiercest drought and storm. What heights of love, what depths of peace, when fears are stilled, when striving cease. My comforter, my all in all, here in the love of Christ I stand. In Christ alone, who took on flesh, fullness of God in helpless babe, this gift of love and righteousness, scorned by the ones he came to save, till on that cross where Jesus died, the wrath of God was satisfied. For every sin on him was laid. Here in the death of Christ I live. There in the ground his body lay, light of the world by darkness slain, then bursting forth in glorious day, up from the grave he rose again. And as he stands in victory, since curse has lost its grip on me, for I am his and he is mine, bought with the precious blood of Christ. No guilt in life, no fear in death. This is the power of Christ in me. From life's first cry to final breath, Jesus commands my destiny. No power of hell, no scheme of man
Hey, thanks, Stephen and Melinda, for that song. In Christ Alone, that's the key to our ministry at Lakeview, our ministry with Drash Ministries. We believe that it's Jesus alone, Jesus only. It's not Jesus and. Lots of people are adding an and to Jesus. Jesus and this, that, whatever it is. We believe that Jesus stands all by himself, and we don't have to depreciate what Jesus did by saying it's Jesus and. So we're in the book of Esther. We're in chapter 4. I want to just review with you because there's some important points here that we want to make moving forward. So if you remember, the story is this in chapter 4, that Mordecai finds out that Haman, his mortal enemy, has figured out a way to kill not only Mordecai, but all of the Jews. He's going to annihilate all of the Jews. So in his anger, his irrational anger, he goes after not just God's people, but really God himself. We've got to be really careful about that. I told you about that last week. And I want to just reiterate it to remind you, be really careful that you're not finding yourself actually coming up against God himself while you're going after his people. So we're concerned about that when you're at church and you're going after somebody. Are you going after that person? Or are you really going after God himself? So let's look at, I want to pick it up in verse 4 again, just to review. It says this: when the eunuchs, when Esther's eunuchs and female attendants came, told her about Mordecai, she was in great distress. She sent clothes for him to put on instead of his sackcloth, but he would not accept them. Then Esther summoned Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs, assigned to attend her, and she ordered him to find out what was troubling Mordecai and why. So Hathach went out to Mordecai in the open square of the city in front of the king's gate. Mordecai told him everything that happened to him, including the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. He also gave a copy of the text of the edict for their annihilation, which had been published in Susa. To show to Esther and explain it to her, he told him to instruct her to go into the king's presence, to beg for mercy, and plead with him for her people. I want you, again, to look at this, because sometimes we get this idea that God is watching us. It's the Bette Midler song, that God is watching from a distance. He's looking out, right? And he's looking down at you and I, right? And he's just kind of hands off. And we get a story like this, and what we realize is God's not hands off. He's not watching us from a distance. He's watching us with specifics, right? Mordecai is given the specifics of the situation so that he can send Esther to the king. He can go to Esther, send her to the king with specifics. We serve a God who is about specifics. Why we do things matter to the greatest of all who's? God, right? God looks down and he says, listen, I'm going to give you the details as you need them, when you need them, for what you need. And so a lot of times we need to be prepared for that. God does care about the specifics, so much so that he gave them to Mordecai, so Mordecai can do what? Send Esther with specifics to the king, the exact amount of money that Haman had promised to pay, right? Again, jogging the king's memory, that's what it would do, as to this whole edict and what's going on with it, right? But what does he tell Esther to do? Like, you have been put in a position to go to the king. So he encourages her to do that, which you and I, from an outset, we would think was pretty normal. We would think, like, listen, what's the big deal about going to your husband? That's what you do. We tell people all the time, hey, will you tell your wife this? Will you tell your husband this? Will you do this? Right? And so he just instructs Esther to go to your husband and tell him the details of this conversation. This is where we pick it up in verse 6. So Hathach went out to Mordecai in the open square, right, of the city in front of the king's gate. Mordecai told him everything, right? And what does the last verse again say there? He also gave him a copy of the text of the edict for their annihilation, which had been published in Susa, to show to Esther and to explain to her. He told him to instruct her to go into the king's presence to do what? To beg for mercy and plead with him for her people. Now, you get that last line there, right? For her people. And I want you to understand that, again, I want you to go back with me to chapter 2, verse 10. Check this out, right? In verse 10 it says this: Esther had not revealed her nationality and family background because Mordecai had what? He had forbidden her to do so. So now all of a sudden Mordecai is going to her and saying, hey, you need to go forward to the king and tell him that he needs to save your people. There's only one little hiccup in this beautiful story. That is, Esther hadn't told the king who her people were. He had no idea. Had he had an idea, he may not have signed this edict. He may have caught on from the very beginning, but he wasn't given that opportunity because Esther, on the advice of her uncle, had withheld who her people were. Now we're going to argue probably and disagree about whether that was God who told him that, whether this was God's idea, that not to reveal it until the right time and all those kind of things. But the bottom line is, the king was set up here for failure, really. The king signed an edict with no idea that it was his queen's people. And now that same queen is going to go to the king and he's going to have to ask for what? The people's lives, right? Why? Save my people. So you see the predicament. You can see some of the internal struggle that Esther would have here. It's similar in nature to you and I at work, to you and I at play, to you and I with our friends. Sometimes we have friends and people at work that don't even know we go to church. They don't know what church we go to. They don't know that we have a people. They don't know our families. Sometimes our families don't know that we go to church. There's a lot of times where we are put in a position where all of a sudden we need to plead for our people, and people don't even understand why. If we had made the decision as Lakeview Community Church to say, listen, we're going to have church no matter what, and we're going to ask our people to step up, stand up, fight for Lakeview Community Church against our government. If you had made that decision along with me, would the people at your work have any idea what you're doing or why you're doing it? Would they even know that you go to Lakeview Community Church? Would they be surprised that you go to Lakeview Community Church? Would they be surprised that you go to church in general? What is it that you're telling people about your people? Do you even consider the people you go to church with, Lakeview Community or not? Do you even consider those people to be your people? Or you just go to a church, but those aren't your people. You see, an example of that would be today when a couple of the people who are associated with our church, members of our church, they lost their mom today, last night actually. And so they're waking up this morning and their mom has passed away. If you consider yourself to be part of Lakeview Community Church and you have a family, then part of your family is hurting today. Now you may or may not have a clue who I'm talking about, and may spend the rest of tonight trying to figure out, or tomorrow when you're watching this, who's he talking about? Who's he talking about? You can text me and I'd be happy to tell you. But the point is, part of your family is hurting. The question is whether or not you're hurting with them because they're part of your family, or you're oblivious to them. You don't even know who they are. Not because they've withheld information, but even if you knew the information, you don't know who they are. Do people at your workplace know what and who your people are, right? So Hathach went back and reported to Esther when Mordecai had said what Mordecai had said. Then he instructed him to say to Mordecai, all the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man, right, or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned to the king has but one law, that they be put to death, unless the king extends the golden scepter to them and spares their lives. But 30 days have passed since I was called to go to the king. So there's this little problem that you and I have heard about in this story, right? There's this golden scepter rule. It's the same rule that probably is at your place of work. You don't just walk into the CEO's office anytime you want. You got to have an appointment. Got to talk to the secretary. Secretary asks. You don't have access directly to the CEO. He's your boss, but he's an out-of-touch boss with the average everyday person. You make appointments to go see him. That's the same thing here with this king, right? You don't just walk in to the king. Some of it's protection. Some of it is a gap theory on purpose so that you understand there's a difference between you and the king. We have that in the churches sometimes, right? People have this gap theory between them and their pastor. They only have access to the pastor when they make appointment. That's not how we run, but some churches it is. You have to have an appointment in order to go and see the pastor. Some people, I suppose, have to make appointments to see their spouse, right? But we get this whole rule. And here's the problem. Esther hasn't been invited for 30 days. Wow. So here's a husband who thinks very highly of his wife, so much so that she won the beauty pageant, but he hasn't seen her in 30 days. So now the drama is building. We find out that Esther doesn't have that all tight of a relationship with the king as of this moment. It's an invitation only, right? Relationship. Some of you have that same relationship with your spouses, with your family, with your workplace. It's kind of an invitation only. Do things with my spouse when they invite me to do things with them. Do things with my family when they invite me to do things with my family. I do things with my boss, with the people I work with when they invite me to do them. We don't have this relationship where we just show up at people's houses and wait for them to come home as we wait for them in their living room. Or we wait for them wherever they are. But we don't have that relationship with people all the time. So we're on invite only. The problem is the CEO of my company hasn't invited me lately. My boss hasn't invited me. My wife hasn't invited me. I haven't been invited lately. So there's a big problem. The drama is building because now we have Esther who needs to save her people. Only the king doesn't know her people are even in jeopardy. And the king doesn't know that because she didn't tell them, and she hasn't been there in 30 days. She doesn't even know if he remembers her name, really. Doesn't know anything. So, she has this dilemma. But she sends back this, hey, I'm not sure you got the right person for the job, Mordecai. Here's the problem. I'm not quite sure you remember this or you understand this, but my head is on the line here. Right? So let's not do that. Right? You and I probably have been in the same situation in moments at work and in other places where we're looking at somebody with kind of fear and trepidation, thinking, hey, I need to tell this person this, but we don't have that kind of a relationship. Or our relationship has been strained lately, and I don't know that I can tell them this. I don't know that I'm the person to say this, and I could lose my job. I could lose them as a friend. I could lose here. There are lots of times when you and I are standing in a place where we could lose, right? Where we have the capability, because of choices we're making, of losing something or losing someone. That's where Esther is. So, in verse 12, we would figure that Esther would say this to Mordecai, and Mordecai would do what? Oh, you're right, Esther. Man, I don't want to put your head on the line. The problem here is it's either Esther's head or a whole bunch of Jews. Right? So either Esther, you take this chance and save your people, or your people are going to be annihilated. Mordecai reminds her of this in 12. It's the famous part of this book, right? When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer: do not think that because you are in the king's house that you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. But you and your father's family will perish. Who knows? But you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Wouldn't it be fantastic if we had somebody following us around all day, just reminding us of this? Hey, maybe you were put on this planet for such a time as this, to be nice to this cashier, to be nice to these people waiting in line, to be nice to this telemarketer, to be nice to this bill collector, to be nice to your family, to be nice to... What if somebody reminded us that maybe this is why you're on this planet? You have an opportunity to make a difference right now. You have an opportunity to go to bat for your family. You have an opportunity to do something with God. You have an opportunity for a memorial moment. Something that people are going to look back thousands of years later and go, whoa, look at what Esther did. She doesn't know that at this moment. What is she concerned about? Her head. What should she be concerned about? Her head. But Mordecai reminds her that there's something more than just her head. And because these are your people, don't think that you're going to skip out of this. How many opportunities have we had with just that moment? Where somehow we think that if we don't say anything to that person, we're going to escape. That if we don't make a stand for this, that somehow we're going to escape all of this. That if we watch something happening, a sin of omission, we know the right to do, but we don't do it, that we're just going to be okay. But it's not always just okay. Most of the time it's not, because here's what Mordecai reminds her, is that God has a plan for salvation of his people. You might be that plan, but if you choose to not take a step forward and see if you're that plan, help will come from somebody else. And you're not going to miss out of just anything. You're going to miss out of a memorial moment. That moment where you and God can come together and do something. How incredible of a moment are you missing out? How incredible at such a time as this that you were put on this planet. So a lot of people choose that. We talk about it all the time. That you were put on this planet for such a time as to be a child, to be a parent, to be a husband, to be a wife, to be a co-worker. You were put on this planet to be something, so that maybe then you could do something. Maybe this beauty pageant winning thing was all about this moment. Did you think about that, Esther? Did you think about why you won the beauty pageant? Did you think it was all about you? Do you think that raise was all about you? Do you think that promotion was all about you? Do you think that that position at church is all about you, that you just did this? Or do you think that maybe God has something to do with it? The people he teamed you up with. Take a good look at the people that you now find yourself involved with. People that you probably a year ago, 2 years ago would have never, ever guessed that you would be involved with. Did God do that for such a time as this? Did God move you from this area to this area? Did God change up your life for such a time as this? Or do you think it was just all about you, your good looks, your good works, your financial position, your whatever, your accomplishments? Do you think it was about you, or do you know that no, it's probably more about God? That I lost this position, I lost this job. Why? Because God's got something else. Maybe it's not about just that you did something. Maybe it's that God allowed you to do something and allowed a perception to happen that made somebody make a choice because God's doing something over here. You've heard a million stories on For Such a Time as This. And you can hear a million more on For Such a Time as This. Way better ones than this one. People wrap it up really nicely. Do really cool things with it. Right? But you can wrap this thing up as much as you want. You can tie pretty bows all over it. You can do all kinds of things with it. But you still have to do something with your moment. You could be set up for a moment and choose to not do anything with it. A lot of parents set up to be great parents have great parent moments and they choose not to do anything with that moment. A lot of wives choose not to be great spouses. They forgo moments. A lot of husbands do the same thing. A lot of workers, a lot of bosses, they choose to not take advantage of the moments that they were given. You don't know when the spotlight's coming. You don't know how many times you're going to get a chance at the same spotlight moment. Salvation is guaranteed. God says it's coming from somebody. You just don't know who that is. So, look at this. In verse 15, finish up this part of the story with this. Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. Go gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day, and I and my attendants would fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went away and carried out all of Esther's instructions. 2 things out of this. First one is, what's Esther's response for such a time as this challenge? Got it. Let's do it. I don't care if I perish. I'm going to seize the moment. Right? I'm going to seize this moment, and we're going to do it. I got it. This is why we get encouragement. This is why we gather together. Do not forsake the gathering together. Why? For encouragement, for teaching. That you have things that God has called you to do. You have for such a time as these moments that God wants you to do. And you know what? He wants you to team up with people. For encouragement, yes, but for prayer, for fasting, get you prepared for it. Hey, join with me in this moment. It's why when we know that a loved one is passing away, what do? We reach out to people. Join with me in this moment. I need, for such a time as this moment, I need to come up alongside my family. I need to be strong. Will you join with me? I need to be strong at work. I'm not going to get the promotion that I wanted. I'm not going to get the raise that I wanted. I want to do this example right. I'm going to lose my job. I want to do it well. I want to do it right. I'm going to get the job. I want to do it right. I want to do it well. Will you come up alongside me in my marriage? Do you see the practical examples? I don't know how to do this homeschooling thing that we've been forced to do. Will you come up alongside me? This is for such a time as this moment. You know, every kid is going to remember the months that they were homeschooled. Their entire life. You know what they're going to look back and they're going to think about? That little 3-month period of time where my parents taught me. Where I lost the teacher, didn't go to school, my parents taught me. How well, not did you teach, how well did you take advantage of that opportunity? Did you sit your kids down and you say, you know what? I don't really know how to do this, but we're going to do it together. We're going to figure this out because it's important. Did you sit down with your spouse and say, you know what? I don't know how we're going to get through this cancer thing, but this is for such a time as this, so we're going to do it and we're going to get through it. We're going to get through wearing masks. We're going to get through social distancing. We're going to get through stuff. But what I really need is you to be praying for me. So rather than cowarding away, thinking your salvation is going to come from you or just you and God, what if we teamed up with other people and said, guys, I don't know that I can do this. I don't know that I can love correctly. I need you to team up with me for such a time as this. And guess what? If it doesn't go the way that I want it to go, if we perish, we perish. But I need your help at taking advantage of this opportunity, at least getting an opportunity for this, right? Notice what Mordecai's response is. We'll do it. I'll team up with you. We're going to fast. You're going to fast. Man, when people lay stuff on you and they say, please pray for me. I'm spending time with my siblings and I just need you to pray for me. I hope you do. That's an important thing for the person that sent you that text, sent you that email, sent you that phone call. Team up with me. Please team up with me. I hope that your response is just like Mordecai. So Mordecai went away, carried out all of Esther's commands. He did everything that Esther wanted him to do. You see, for such a time, moments are memorial in nature, but they're upheld. They're upheld by you and I doing what we've been asked to do, teaming up with people. So hope that's an encouragement to you as we get ready for memorial moments this weekend. We're going to talk about, at Lakeview Community Church at 10 o'clock on Sunday, we're going to talk about memorial moments, how they just appear, what happens with them. But they're always upheld by other people. So let us help you with your memorial moment. Tell us what it is that you're doing that you need us to pray for. And we'd love to team up with you. Can I pray with you? Father God, we thank you for this time. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for those who are listening. Thank you for all of those who have checked in on a nightly basis, on a daily basis. Lord, I pray that you would let them have eyes to see the moments that you have given them. Give them the ability to embrace those moments, but also give them the ability to reach out to others, to help them, to support them, to be the foundation. Lord, we just pray that you would help us to embrace the opportunities that we have that involve where you've placed us, who you placed us with, when you placed us, why you placed us, so we can make a difference in who you placed us with, the people that we're supposed to be touching, the people that we're supposed to be changing their lives, the people that we're supposed to be teaming up with you to save. Lord, help us to do that. Your name, amen. Hey, thanks for joining us for a Thursday night Bible study moment with Lakeview Community Church. Next week we're on chapter 5. I would have gone longer tonight, but we wanted to make sure that we got chapter 5 next week, and I didn't want to start a verse or two and not get done with that. So join us next week, and look forward to some announcements coming up about reopening of churches in the area, what's going to be happening, what God's doing with all of that. Have a great night.